Hi, this is Antoinette with Transistor Rodeo, where we round up the news for you. I want to talk to you a little bit about Angela Davis. I really didn't know a whole lot about her. I did a little research and a little reading after I saw a film recently called Free Angela and All Political Prisoners. It's actually a very good film. I suggest you check it out. Give you a little backstory. I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's a lot of information that you'd have to chew on, and my topic is very specific about Angela. She was a she was how do I put this? She went to a black woman in the 60s. Definitely a tough time for the black people in that time. The race riots. She grew up a little bit more affluent. She went to Brandeis, and then when she graduated, she went to Germany to study philosophy. While she was over there, that's when the Black Panther movement started to really take off here in the States, and she wanted to not just be a part of the Black Panther movement, but just the movement that was happening in the 60s, however you want to call it, a revolution, just the political unrest with the war and the way that minorities were being treated. That was the first real movement. And if you really want to talk about a movement today, you need to really study what happened back in the 60s and 70s, see if you can learn from those mistakes and maybe do a little bit better job. I'm not saying that they didn't do a great job. They worked really hard, and all of the things that happened with civil rights, the boundaries that they pushed, it was difficult at best. And for them to manage to do the things that they've done, I'm just in awe. But going back to Angela, she was offered a job at UCLA giving lectures. And one in particular she was giving was on Frederick Douglass and his philosophy. She being a philosophy student, she would give these lectures, and she would fill out the halls that she was giving lectures in, 2,000 people. So people were interested. She was also very controversial, being a communist. So in one particular moment, she gave this lecture. News crews were interviewing people coming out of the lecture hall, and most of the feedback that they were getting is very positive. One gentleman said, it was a black guy, and he said, I love what she's doing for the black community. She wants to. It's all about education with her, and that is very important. When you're involved in something as strong as a revolution, education is your best weapon. Knowing the laws, knowing how to be civilly disobedient, but yet not get killed. She was inspiring to a lot of these people that came out of the lecture. This young, looked like a guy who was from New York, hipster type back in the 60s, that, what do you call those guys? The Subterranean. He had that whole Subterranean jazzy glasses. And he says, she's brilliant, she's intelligent, she really moved me. A lot of these people that went to the lecture were in awe of her. But they got to one guy, and he said something that really kind of hit me, because it is exactly the same kind of stuff that you're hearing today. He was how do I put it? He was a bro. He was just a bro. He had the pop collar. He had sunglasses on top of his head. He had that holier-than-thou, entitled attitude. And you could hear him. Even though this is the 70s, and he was actually a well-spoken individual, it's just the attitude, that entitled bro attitude. And he said to the camera, when they asked him what he thought, and I'm going to read this is quote, I think she's trying to overthrow our system of government. Of course, being a communist, that's what he was talking about. And, communism had been painted so badly in the 50s with the McCarthy hearings. It was just so ugly that the word communism is just a dirty word. So it's like she's trying to overthrow our system of government. And while I think it is bad to limit freedom of speech of any group because it limits democracy, I think it is better to have a limited democracy that will last for a long, long time, rather than a complete democracy and complete freedom that only lasts for a brief period. So you have to understand what he's saying here. Not only is he contradicting himself in the same breath, I don't want to limit free speech because that limits democracy, but I want to limit this group's free speech so we can have a longer democracy. That is not complete freedom. That is not complete democracy. But he thinks that it would be better if we were able to limit it. The problem is that if you limit a freedom from one group, eventually that's going to come back and bite you, and your freedom is going to be limited somehow. And be like, well, how did this happen? I only meant for it to happen to them. Those people, not my tribe. But it always comes back around. It always bites you. Always. And when I heard him say this, the first thing I thought was, wow. Spoken by somebody who has never had their freedom or their democracy limited. He wants to limit somebody else's free speech. I'm not worried about mine. I'm white. I've got a job. I live in a nice neighborhood. Nobody's going to take away my freedom. Now, those people, on the other hand, with their big scary afros, and their militant hats, and their, walking around with guns. Hey, I'm not saying that, when you look at a Black Panther, they didn't look scary, but that was the point. That was the point. They saw so many white people. Not all white people, of course not all white people, but the white people that were racist, the cops at the time that were cracking heads. They just want to let you know it's legal to open carry. I'm going to open carry. I'm going to make sure that my brothers and sisters don't get killed. When you talk about the Black Panthers, most people, the first thing they think is just scary black man. He's coming to kill you. He's going to rape your white women. What you really need to see is protecting your community. And the film that eventually goes on to how she became more and more involved with the Black Panther community, how a particular office where they had, it was like a main office for a Black Panther community, was overtaken by the cops. And there was this fight ensued. I don't know the details. I just know it was bad, and some people got hurt and some people got killed. And she became more embroiled in it because she saw the injustice in it. And I think that that's the point. When you see injustice, you have to stand up. You have to be educated. You have to be smart. You have to do the right things. You have to try to not get yourself hurt or killed. But you also need to be able to get your point across. And every time I talk about protest and people complain, well, protest, it just gets in my way. That's the point of protest. It's not supposed to be convenient for you. If something is happening that is hurting someone and they get out and they protest it, it's because they want everyone to know what's happening to them. People, look at what's happening to us. We're getting hurt. We're getting killed. We're getting shot. Today, we're still doing this. We want you to pay attention. Do you think that Black people over the years have just been making this stuff up? It's like, oh, it happened so long ago. That was back in the 60s. It's not happening now. We had a Black president. There's no more racism. There is. You're just not seeing it because it's not coming in your community and it's not happening to your tribe. But when they come to you and they say, like Black Lives Movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, when they come to you and they say, hey, this stuff is happening to us, trust me, it's happening. You're just not seeing it. Oh, I don't believe it. I've never seen anything like that. Why would they lie? It's been happening to them for years, for decades, for centuries. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I admired the woman, Angela, for the things she stood up for. And she really did, She really did inspire a movement. There were a lot of people out there that really were affected by the words that she said and what she taught and what she believed in. And I'm not saying that she was perfectly right, because we all have our different philosophies on how to live life. But she was trying to make things better, and I think that's the most important thing. All right, thanks. Hey, this is Antoinette from Transistor Rodeo. If you like what you saw here, please subscribe for more videos and content, and you can follow me on Twitter at Transistor Rodeo.